It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Shoot, I messed up my muted microphone, but we're just going to roll with it. Welcome to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host, Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. Go check out the description of our shows. We've got Everything Custom Designs Facebook link. Smitty is rocking an Around the 412 merch from Everything Custom Designs right now. If you're watching over on YouTube, you can check that out right now. Go check Haley Wagner out. It's our friend. She's got that small business going. Hit her up. She's got some St. Patrick's Day stuff going. And as far as the Steelers show, you can still order. Don't know about today, but you can still try to get some orders in for St. Patrick's Day. But, you know, there's always going to be more holidays. But she does more than holiday stuff, so go check out her Facebook page. She'll hook you up. Also, go check out Keeks Barbershop. Download The Cut, and you can schedule a haircut with our friend Christian at Keeks Barbershop. It's the logo that's above my head right here. I don't know the address, so I'll allow Smitty to say that. But I don't.
401 Urquhart Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. 15009. Again, Keeks Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA.
There it is. There it is. This is the Pirate Show. And depending on what has happened, this is either going to come out before or after the Penguins show. Obviously, it's going to be one of the two. But to be honest, breaking the fourth wall, we're recording. Normally, we record this Pirates show last, but we record them all on the same day. But we're really waiting on a Jake Gensel trade and postponing this. So if a Jake Gensel trade has not happened by Wednesday, then this is coming out before the Pirates show, or by Thursday, then this is coming out before the Pirates show. So this is the Pirates show, or let's just jump into it.
There we go. Great way to introduce it that we're talking about the Pirates. Hey, the season's getting close. Andrew McCutchen made his spring debut, which is great to see. Coming back off his injury, wasn't sure how much we would get to see of Kutch this spring. I want to talk about the downside of things here, though. David Bednar has not pitched this spring. We know that he's dealing with something. My question is it, being cautious with him and he's going to be ready to go to start the season, or are we going to not see David Bednar to start the season? Because now we're really going to have some problems, and it would only be coupled by the fact that Dauri Moreta is going to miss significant time. Wouldn't surprise me if we're talking about, a large portion, if not the whole season. It was really weird because he's a guy, sits mid-90s with his fastball, very hard thrower. We've seen him touch 100 before, I think, or at least 99. But he was down in the high 80s in his last spring training game, gave up a couple home runs, and then you see he throws a pitch and his arm just kind of sits there, and you can see he's like trying to shake it off. Never good. They said that there is some type of, I think they even said they know for sure it's some type
of
ligament
damage.
Yeah, that he's dealing with. So that's obviously, not good. And you know where your mind goes when you're talking about a drop in velocity like that, and then they bring the talk about ligaments into things. So all the best to Dauri Moreta. But yeah, if you're talking about not having him for a significant amount of time, potentially the whole season, and you got David Bednar on the shelf to begin the season already, that bullpen is getting tested, and it just goes to show you, man, you can never have enough arms.
You can never have enough arms, and luckily, at least if the arms are going to be continuing to get injured, the bullpen is where they were the strongest. So there's a little give and take with it, but you never want to see this happen, especially to the strength of your team in that bullpen. Dauri Moreta, if he's out for the year, I feel like that's a big hit to the bullpen. He was one of the more consistent arms that they had all season.
Led them in strikeouts per 9 last year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big loss for them. Obviously, don't want to throw around the TJ word, and it's not the TJ we like to talk about in Pittsburgh, but that's always a possibility when you're talking about like ligaments in the elbow and everything like that. And whenever a guy is like shaking off the elbow and you can like see it physically that it's bothering him, that's always worrisome. So thoughts go out to him. Hopefully, it is going to be sooner than later that we know the news, and hopefully it's more positive news than negative news. David Bednar is a curious one to me. He might just be one where it could be more precautionary. I feel like obviously you want to get a little warm up to the season and play in spring training, but he's someone that has had a lot of experience, especially with this organization and at this level. So I don't think that if they were going to hold him out, I don't really think that it's going to be that big of a deal to his season. And so that one could be a possibility to me that it could be more precautionary than anything. Hopefully, obviously don't want to have your best relief pitcher miss an extended period of time. But, you know, of course, this happens to the Pirates. Of course, this happens to the small market team. And you're going to really just spit down on the little guy some more. That the best part of our team, they're already getting injuries in it. And the season hasn't even started, of course.
Yeah, we know it's his lat. They said that, and they're being cautious with it. I will say the most recent update that came out yesterday was there was a report that he said that he would like to start throwing soon and expects to be able to do so. So I guess that's, you know, we have some hopefulness there that that's going to be the case. It's just until we see it actually happen and happen without a setback, you know, I'm going to be a little bit cautious about the approach going forward. So we'll see how that plays out. I already mentioned McCutchen and Josh Palacios as well, on top of McCutchen, getting in some work for the first time this spring training. Henry Davis continues to rate what a spring training he's had. You know, I know that there was some conversation early on about like, hey, don't you know, put it in pen that he's going to be in the majors to start the season. I don't know, man. Like, how do you not? Even if it's not going to be him catching every day, I would like for it to be. But even if it's not, if you are going to roll with like Grandal or whatever, I don't know how you leave him out of the opening day, you know, 26-man roster. Like he's very clearly.
I don't know how you leave him out of the opening day lineup.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to say that, but at the same time I was like, okay, but I don't want that to be construed in a way that like, okay, he plays an opening day and then, so yeah, he should definitely be on the roster in the lineup opening day, and, you know, should be a significant part of the season from start to finish, barring health. So I don't see a reason for him to go down to the minors. Like, I know that there's been talks about working on his catching, whatever. Man, he's one of your best bats. Like, I just feel like the bat needs to be in the lineup. And if you're that worried about where his catching's at, woof.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more to worry about. I mean, sure, I want to know the actual value sense. I'm not smart enough to know these things. What is the value sense that you're giving up? So if you have a defensive catcher, there's someone that's really good at being a catcher, but they're very inefficient offensively. But you have the flip side where, I mean, he's not a bad catcher, but he's not like super analytically like off the charts as a catcher, but he has shown that he can be good with his bat. Like, what is the value difference in those two types of players? This is what I would be curious about, because
that's a good point.
For what I think that the Pirates need to have, if a guy is going to be batting 280 plus, but he doesn't frame as many pitches or he doesn't throw guys out at second as often, I would rather have that than a guy batting 150 or below, because that's what you get with a lot of the catchers that we've had recently that have been good defensive catchers, but they don't really have a bat. And that's just a black hole in the lineup. And that's something that offensively you can't really give up whenever you're the Pirates. You have to, 1 through 9, you've got to have some offense from everybody.
Well, what's interesting is, like, you can look at the start comparison between just last year, right? With Austin Hedges being the guy that, you know, an all defense guy. If Davis is an all offense guy, you know, what is the value difference in what they're bringing to the table? But I agree with you. And to be honest, like, again, even if it means him not catching, if you gotta find a spot for him in the outfield, or, you know, if Kutch, you feel like it's probably gonna be the primary DH, but like, if you find a way to get Davis into the lineup as a DH too, to give Kutch complete days off, you know, I think that's a path for him to continue to have that bat in the lineup as well. So I don't know. To me, it was never on my mind that he should start in the minors.
No, I didn't even think it was going to be a question that he would start in the minors.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, you saw that conversation, I'm assuming, at least, that you know, Jason Mackey put it out there very early in spring training. Like, don't be surprised if he isn't on the big club to start the season. So, another player that we know won't be on the big club to start the season is Paul Skenes. That one pretty expected though, right? Like, but I will say the encouraging part of this, and I'm curious to get your take on it, is he's going to remain with the team in spring training though. Like he wasn't, part of the first guys sent back to minor league camp or anything. They still want him to be part of the MLB spring training and getting game action here. So does that give you any optimism at all for like how early we could see him?
To me, that is the Pirates saying we know that he's our best pitcher. We're just not allowed to show it yet because we want to get that service time rule. I do think that the Pirates are going to be willing to bring him up sooner than later, especially with how bad this rotation could be. I mean, the season hasn't started, but there's really there's no limit to me how early he could come up in my eyes. Now, in the Pirates' eyes, that's going to be very different. But I do think it is a good sign that he's staying there. And I think that they are aware, like, hey, this guy is probably closer to MLB ready than not. We should keep him with the team and then keep him in Indy and have him close. So we know that if we need an arm, we can bring him up. And I feel like obviously that's them wanting to get to the service time if they can keep their head above water until June. But if they can't, then he's going to be ready. He's going to be available. And I feel like that's going to be different than they've handled pitchers in the past. But just because I don't think that they've ever had anybody over the last like decade that is probably more MLB ready to come up and start a game at that level than Paul Skenes has been. And that they've had like in the minors, like waiting to come up. I don't think that they've had anybody this close, especially like less than a year after he's been drafted.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they realize that he is ready, but like you said, it's not going to happen from the beginning of the season. So, but what could potentially happen? Another one I want to get your take on: Jared Jones. Derek Shelton said he's certainly in the mix to be part of the rotation on opening day. Is this just lip service, or do you feel like this is actually the case that he could be one of the guys to take the rotation spot?
I take this with a grain of salt because obviously I don't know a ton, but I think that it's very realistic that he could be the case. I mean, he made the jump to AAA last year, did okay at the AAA level, and I think that looking at the state of the rotation, that's part of the biggest thing weighing into it. Not necessarily what I think of Jared Jones as a player, but what I think of this rotation as a whole. There's a lot of question going into this season about how good this rotation is going to be, or I guess I should phrase it, how bad this rotation is going to be. And so if Jared Jones is outperforming some of the guys we expected to be in this rotation, like if Jared Jones gets a spot over like Bailey Falter, or is anybody really going to be that shocked? I mean, let's be honest. Like, there's not really household names or guys that we are expecting to be in this rotation that we think are going to be mainstays and make a huge impact right away in this rotation. So it's not surprising me at all that he's going to be in the mix. Whether they actually do it or not, I don't know. That's up to them ultimately, obviously. But I think that the fact that he's in the mix, it makes me kind of cautious about how this rotation is going to be to start the season. Because if someone like Jared Jones, who's had a cup of coffee at the AAA level, is pushing to be in your rotation, then what does that really say about the guys that you have in your rotation?
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be a question mark on the back end for sure anyway. But yeah, I think maybe Bailey Falter is probably the one that, like, his performance in the spring is what's opening the door here. But yeah, okay, say Jared Jones is part of this equation. I think he should be. Certainly has more upside than a lot of the guys that we've talked about there. To me, the question is going to be the control, because I've looked at him and said, for sure, you got a quality reliever there. His stuff is so nasty. He goes over 100 as well. And his just the way his arm is building up, I think he's still getting stronger and he can continue to add to that. So, yeah, what I was getting at was I see what you're saying for sure. But is it as much of a statement about those guys, or is it just that much of a statement with how impressed they are with Jared Jones? Like you mentioned how quickly he's rose through the minor league ranks. So are they that impressed with Jared Jones, or are they that unimpressed with everybody else?
Probably that's what I'm saying. Like I think it's a little bit of both, but I don't know which one it is more of the other, because I mean, you and I have been sitting here all offseason. We're not impressed with the rotation, but we don't know necessarily what like Derek Shelton and company think of the actual rotation that they have. Maybe they think similar to what we do, and they think that they're not going to be that great. Or maybe they are just that impressed with Jared Jones, and he's been showing well in spring training. I would like to think it's the latter, but as I sit here right now, I can't honestly say that I think that they are just that much impressed with Jared Jones, and he's just beating out these guys, because I don't really think that they would be that hard to beat out in the first place.
Sure. We did have a Pirates question from John. Assuming that Henry Davis is the starting catcher, how do you guys feel about the potential starting lineup? I've said this before. Like, my trepidation with this team is entirely really around the rotation. It may be a little bit at first base, but like, I like their lineup. Like, I don't know the last time that I could say this as a Pirate fan, but like, I feel like at the very least, regardless of the pitching they get, they're going to be a fun team to watch this year. And that's all, honestly, that I can really ask for. You know, at the end of the day, we're watching sports for entertainment, right? And I think they're going to be an entertaining team in 2024 at the very least. You look at what T. Bryan was able to do the last couple months of last season. Obviously, the Gold Glove is great, but like, the bat played at like an MVP level basically from the All-Star break on. Brian Reynolds, you know, was his same steady self. I think that he probably didn't have his best year. I think there's probably a little bit more to give, and maybe that will happen with, you know, more lineup protection if this lineup as a whole does take a step forward. Jack Sawinski's an interesting one, man. I feel like he's basically like the X factor for this team. We know that the highs are super high and the lows are very low. If he can find some more consistency, that would be huge for this team. A full season of Oneil Cruz coming back. Who knows what's going to happen at second base, but I'm really intrigued by that competition that's going on there between Liover Peguero, Nick Gonzalez, Jared Triolo. I guess you can. I feel like G1 Bay is probably on the outside of that now. I feel like it's going to be Triolo or Peguero based off what the spring training has looked like for those two. Don't know what they're going to do in right field. Maybe Henry Davis is part of that equation, but obviously they brought in, you know, Olivares, and you got Palacios coming back. Connor Joe's still on the team. Like, he's got to fit in somewhere as well, I guess. If it's not, you know, at first base, off the bench, you know, maybe forming a platoon with Rowdy Tellez, which is where I said is probably my one real concern within the lineup, other than obviously the pitching rotation. But yeah, like, you look around the field, and I'd like their lineup. It's just, what's their starting pitching going to be like?
My opening day prediction for what the lineup is going to be is,
this is good, actually.
I'm going to say, obviously we know Mitch Keller is going to start. I'm going to say that he's going to be throwing to Henry Davis. I'll keep it optimistic. I'll have Rowdy Tellez at first base. I'll say Peguero is going to be at second base. Oneil Cruz and Brian Hayes at short and at third. And then for the outfield, I would round it out with, I'll put Jack Sawinski in left field, Brian Reynolds in center field, and I'll say Olivares in right field, and then I'll have Andrew McCutchen DHing.
Okay, so I have some differences here. Sawinski's going to play center field, I think, with Reynolds at left. I'm going to have Grandal at catcher. Henry Davis is playing right field. Cutch's the DH. Everything else is the same. Okay. The next one that I'm a little bit, but we mentioned first base. We don't know if they're going to see a righty or a lefty, though. So that will probably be change your mind. If it's a left-handed pitcher, you'll think it would be Connor Joe over Tellez.
Yeah. Yeah, Connor Joe's just one of those guys that you're going to probably see him go in the outfield sometimes, go at first base sometimes. I mean, maybe, depending on who's resting, maybe even DH sometimes. He's going to be definitely one of the platoon guys. You kind of forget he's there sometimes.
Yeah, and like, I mean, he's fine. Like, I think he's a fine guy to have on the team. Like, he's almost like not a bad version of, but like maybe one of the better years of Sean Rod to have around.
Yeah, 2015 Sean Rod.
Yeah,
that's the year you want.
Right. So, yeah, I'm super intrigued by this lineup. We won't get into, you know, the batting order quite yet. We can try to predict that maybe our episode right before the opener or something. But yeah, I think that there's reason for optimism for the Pirates in 2024, especially within this division. You know, I had this conversation, oddly enough, on a Steelers podcast I was just on. I was on Jeff Hartman's show. who is, Fans First. We just recently joined up with that network. We're putting the podcast out through them now, but that's Jeff Hartman's network. And I was on his podcast, and he was like, "Hey, before I let you go, I know this is a Steelers show, but I got to ask you what you think about the Pirates this year." And we both agreed, like, there's this weird sense of optimism. And I think a lot of it is to do with the state of the NL Central too, like not just necessarily the Pirates, but also everybody else. But again, going back to the pitching, like, okay, say they get to June, they're still, right there. Paul Skenes comes up. Then we get to the trade deadline. Maybe they do get aggressive and add an arm at the trade deadline. And then maybe they're waiting to make their move there as opposed to free agency. Hard to give the Pirates the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. But I'm just saying, like, I think there's a world where that happens.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for this optimism to be crushing eventually. Like, probably in, I don't know, as soon as May.
I mean, last year it happened. July. Yeah, last year it happened before May. I know that the team finished off well, like the record wasn't terrible. And there were still like moments that were fun to watch, but really, like once O'Neal Cruz got hurt, right? Like it was just like, that's the season.
Yeah.
Then we wanted to see the most, and it's gone.
Yeah,
so.
Pretty wild that they won 20 of their first 30 games last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That'll do it. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let us know how you feel about the Pirates in 2024 and anything that we talked about. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Be sure to follow us on all social medias at Around the 412. Check out the link in the description to Everything Custom Designs, our friend Haley Wagner's small business. I'm rocking the Around the 412 design, one of them that she made for us. I have it in gray and black, but yeah, check out the link. Get some custom merch, just not a hat, but you can do pretty much anything else for you. And then above Tyler, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the logo, Teats Barbershop. We also got it scrolling on the ticker, but if you're listening somewhere else, just listen to my voice talk about it. Teats Barbershop, located at 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Our friend Christian Circles Barbershop, another small business that we love promoting and talking about. Him, Tony, and Ashley do great work over there. You can book an appointment on The Cut. Download The Cut through your app store, whether that is, iPhone, Google Play, whatever you got. You can find the app there and book an appointment with him. Again, Teach Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. But that'll do it. This has been the Around the 412 Pirates show. For Smitty, for Tyler, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.